This is HUPCast, the short, sharp podcast from the Hands Up Project. Hello and welcome to the Hands Up Project podcast. The Hands Up Project is an educational charity connecting young people and their English teachers in Palestine with a network of volunteers from around the world. In creating this podcast, we hope to amplify the voices of our friends in Gaza, English teachers and students whose faces we would normally see on Zoom every day of the week in storytelling and drama sessions.
My name is Reem, and I'm one of the Hands Up volunteers who had the privilege of working with Hala. Hala is a 16-year-old Gazan girl from Al-Karama neighborhood. Choosing how to introduce Hala to this podcast was difficult, so I thought I should tell you guys a story about her persistence and passion that perfectly describes her personality. In the summer of 2022, Hala and her team qualified for the Al-Nizak Foundation's Tech Talent Competition. Unfortunately, they could not obtain the necessary tools and parts in Gaza to implement the project. Furthermore, entry restrictions made importing them impossible. Adapting to the situation, they transformed their project into scientific research, winning the competition at the Gaza Strip level. The prize was an opportunity to travel to the West Bank for the exhibition and final competition. Unfortunately, travel restrictions, permit delays, and the extended hours of the crossing caused them to arrive late. Because of that, projects from the Gaza Strip were not evaluated. Originally planned for 4 days, the trip was cut short to 1. Despite everything Hala went through, she returned to Gaza, grateful, hopeful, and determined. She might not have won the final competition, but she won a trip to her country. Presently, Hala, who has been displaced 3 times, is sheltering in Rafah. She sent us this message to share with you.
Hi everybody, I am Hala Muhammad Aqil, 16 years old, a Gazan girl from Gaza, Palestine, and I'm very proud that I am Palestinian. And today, I will tell you my story about this barbaric war waged by the Israeli occupation. The war is the most difficult war I have ever experienced since my return from Malaysia in 2016. This war is different from all the wars that preceded it. This war is an actual war of genocide. It is the first war that we were displaced from our homes, as I lived in Al-Karama area in the north of Gaza. We were displaced from my home after we lived through the most difficult night in Al-Karama area. And who doesn't know this night, as all the news stations reported about it, it was a massacre, as there was a ring of fire and random bombings everywhere, and we were not able to leave our house until after the arrival of the Red Cross, which took us out of our homes under the bombardment to be displaced for the first time on the 10th of October 2023. And this day was the last day I saw my house. After that, I did not see it until this day we moved for the first time to my aunt's house in El Sheikh Radwan area, and the bombing was continuing around us. However, in this war, there is no safe place in Gaza Strip. On Friday, October 13, 2023, we were completely displaced from Gaza City, heading to the south of Gaza Strip after the Israeli occupation army said that the northern area is a dangerous area and we must move to the south. And we displaced because we lived a difficult nights in Al Sheikh Radwan area. We fled on Friday to the south of Gaza Strip to my grandfather's house in Khan Yunis, specifically in Al Qarara area. The bombing was continuing, but it was not very close to us. But throughout this period, the massacres were continuing in the north and south of the strip. We didn't forget to say that in the 2 times we were displaced from our homes, we did not live a normal life, as the electricity and water were cut off. Moreover, food and drink became less available in the markets. We began to suffer to obtain water and food, and we began to bake bread by ourselves, using wood fire instead of using gas fire, since the bakeries were no longer working and the gas has ended. All this life was a difficult, tragic life, and it became even more tragic when we were displaced for the 3rd time after we had lived for a long period, around 50 days, in my grandfather's house in Khan Yunis. The 3rd displacement was on the 2nd of December 2023 to Rafah, after we had lived the most difficult night since our arrival to Khan Yunis, where the sounds were terrible, there was bombing everywhere around us, and there was a round of fire around us. And from the force of the bombing, all the windows of the house were broken. The next morning, after this difficult night, we displaced after the mills adjacent to my grandfather's house were bombed with a missile and a tank shell. Moreover, the Israeli army tanks began to arrive to the beginning of the street that connected us to my grandfather's house, and we left at the last moments. We were displaced for the third time to Rafah, and this displacement was the most difficult displacement, as we do not have any relatives in Rafah to sit with them. So, we were forced to move to shelters temporarily that have very difficult and harsh conditions until we can find an apartment to rent and move into. Will we find this apartment? Or will we have to move again before we find the apartment? Or will death relieve us of this torment? Today is the 90th day of the war. The war is still continuing, the dream still remains, and hope is still present within us. But our patience and fatigue have run out to the extreme, and we no longer have the energy with us to bear more days of this war. My message to the world is that we do not need the humanitarian aid that you're sending. We really want a complete ceasefire. Is it true that in this great world with all its countries cannot stop the fire in Gaza Strip? Please stop the war on Gaza. We are dying.